We've got one in our gallery. Thank you, Roxy, for coming tonight. I'd like to especially welcome tonight our new and upcoming General Manager, Jason Brown, who is in the position of Team Leader of Corporate and Business Services at the moment. So thank you for coming tonight and welcome to Kentish. And we're very much looking forward to what you have to offer us over the coming years in your term as General Manager. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you to our General Manager here tonight, Jordan Watson, Jonathan Nagel and Jan Phoebe, thank you. And thank you, councillors, for coming tonight. Thank you to Mrs Shaw for taking the minutes here tonight. All right, we'll go on to number one, and that is the apologies and leave of absence. We have one apology tonight, and that's our Councillor Penny Lane, who is an apology tonight. Number two, declaration of pecuniary and conflicts of interest, Local Government Act of 1993, sections 48 to 51. Just to remind councillors, if you have a pecuniary or a conflict of interest on any item of the agenda, please fill in the form and give it to Mrs Shaw. Number three, we have confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 23rd of April. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Kentish Council held at the Council Meeting Room, Sheffield, 23rd of April 2024 be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hay, Councillor Blenkhorn. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Then I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried. Number four, we have no presentations nil, notice of motion nil, petitions nil. Number seven, we have a response to questions raised at our prior ordinary council meeting. Mr Bott from Sheffield had a question about necessary approvals from the landowners of EPA, Forestry Practices Authority and Threatened Species Unit prior to the recent clearing of the threatened Eucalyptus ovata woodland at the southeast corner of his property and the adjoining land to the south. We have a response, and question two was what authority did council have to go on my land to do this, and there is a response there. So I have a recommendation that the responses to the questions from Clive Bott at the council meeting held on the 23rd of April 2024 be received and noticed. Could I have a...
Could I just ask a question on that, please? On their feedback to Clive Bott?
I guess we generally don't debate them, but I guess if there's a question, that's legitimate.
Can I just get a mover and a seconder first, and then I'll ask for questions after that? Councillor Richards and Councillor Hughes. And now Councillor Blenkhorn. We don't normally have questions or comments.
But I guess a question.
A question?
Yeah, what my question is, it states in here that works associated with clearing vegetation for the installation of the flood mitigation drain and associated vehicle access, which also forms preparatory works for the future upgrades of the public road within established road reserves. It stated that it's not required. So does that mean that any landholder who wants to put a drain on their property that contains threatened species like Eucalyptus ovata, that they can go full hog and clear up to probably 200 tonnes, which is apparently the estimate by Clive Bott that's happened on his land? So is it just so you can say that you can go and clear a drain and you've got the right of way just to go through?
If you may move, Mr McGill could answer that.
I'd be reluctant to give advice that people might take out of context, but in terms of the public road, like a road reserve, and for put aside for public road purposes and all the rest of it, then we're understanding that we're in conformance with the requirements. I have discussed that by email with the Forest Practice Authority representative, and they're the same interpretation. But in terms of extending that interpretation to anywhere else or any other situation, I wouldn't be relying on that.
Thank you for that response, Mr Nagel. All right, we do have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put the recommendation to vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Public participation, questions on notice. We have a question from Shane Allison at Port Sorrel, and we also, there has been a proposed response to that question, and we have a second question Could the council and councillors please provide the community with any constitutions, charters, assemblies or any other entity associated with the council's body, corporate corporation, including any other memberships and or affiliates the mayor, deputy mayor, councillors, GM, CEO and executive staff has signed, agreed or are bound to. We have a response there. The recommendation is that the council, in relation to the questions on notice received from Shane Allison, endorse the responses proposed and authorise their release. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Dickinson. So I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We do have public participation questions without notice from the public. I do have a question that was handed to me this afternoon, and I will just take it on notice from Mr. Clive Bott. At the last meeting, it was mentioned that 8 or 10 trees were cut. I counted 20 stumps. Please explain the difference. My tenant gave permission a day and a half after work had started. Why wasn't I notified? I believe Local Government Act states that I'm to be given 14 days notice in writing plus a copy of plan. I have neither. What is happening to trees that Mount Roland Landcare planted, the Pony Club and the tip? I'm going to take those questions on notice and we will get a response back for the next meeting in June. So public question time. So we have one member in the gallery. So I will ask you to stand up. Just give us your name and your question.
My name's Roxley Felmingham. Is the video working tonight? Because it seems to break down with regularity when I make the question. The question I think will probably be best answered by Jared is that it's got to do with what is the total spending on the flood mitigation in Railton?
Yes, there is a report in tonight. Maybe if I just hand that over to Mr. McGaw again.
Another part of the question is get a ghost. And can you give me some details on what so far has been spent?
Apologies, the difference between the first question and the second question?
What was the total and details on what or how it's been spent?
Wasn't that the first question?
No.
First question was how much. The second question, what's it been spent on, I think. Is that correct?
The second one is details on what the money's been spent on.
Yeah.
And what's been the total spend on the flood mitigation?
Yeah, no, I think given the detail required, we'll take that on notice. My suggestion is.
Okay. The other question is a bit of an informative what's going on with the RSL in Railton. There seems to be a lot of newspaper going on that's closing. That's not the fact. The head of RSL Tasmania is going to make Railton what they call a hub. It's going to have a full time. It's going to be open 5 days a week. It's going to process claims and direct people to the right people if they seek help. Any questions about that?
No, well, you ask the questions, we answer.
Oh, well, I was more of information that to clarify anything or misgivings that people might have. At present, they've got elected a complete new staff. So they are at the moment going through and applying for all the relevant requirements, whether it's got to do with responsible alcohol sales, this sort of thing, and general fixing up, and the kitchen and things like that will be open this year sometime. So as we progress in rectifying any problems that they find, so we'll have a functioning RSL club the way it should be, or has been in the past.
So there's no question, you're just making a statement.
I just want to make you know what is going on. No doubt the RSL will probably be in contact with you because it's been said they intend to put housing down there, so obviously you'll be able to get some work out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know where the land's going to be, but there was sections, it was supposed to be 3 individual units to be built for whether it's emergency housing or long-term housing for veterans. So I say, if you had any questions, you can either ask me now or send me a letter.
You ask us the questions. It's public question time.
You're going to donate then, Gerard?
No, it's public question time, and the idea is that council asks provides answers to any questions. You basically made a statement, I think
That's
council
it, that's what it
acknowledges that.
is, yes. So we'll acknowledge the fact that the RSL now is, there's a good process in place for keeping it open. So we're very pleased to hear that.
Get an invitation for the next barbecue.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm only entitled to 2 questions, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Now, I see where Mr. Bott has turned up. Thank you, Clive. I have tabled your questions because you weren't here when we were doing question time. So I have read your questions out.
Right.
And so we are going to take those questions on notice and we will get back to you. Sorry to make you come in and then leave again, but we have taken your questions and we've taken them on notice and you will get a response.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right.
Right,
Thank you very much for coming.
not a problem, I have to leave it up.
That's all right. I'm sorry we jumped the gun a little bit. I did say to you 6:10 and we're probably on time tonight. But
Well,
thank you for coming.
I'm not quite far past.
Oh, it's nearly 15:15. Okay, we'll go on to number 10 and we have the planning authority, but nothing in planning authority tonight. Number 11, the Development Regulatory Services Department, 11.1, Building Department Report. And our report author is Jan Phoebe, our Manager of Development Regulatory Services. There are no attachments, but we have a recommendation that the report advising of building and plumbing applications and notifications received for the month of April 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig, Councillor Hughes. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Twaits.
Can I ask you a question? In the other category, there's solar panels and a sum of $57,000. So that's a lot of solar panels. Do we know?
Through the chair, there are 3 other low risk applications also included in
There,
that
3.
total.
Oh, I completely missed those.
Missed those.
Beg your pardon. Right.
I haven't got the breakdown in front of me of each,
Oh, well.
each of those applications.
Sorry, I withdraw my question.
Thank you, Councillor
Haven't had
Twaits.
to read yet. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
I did notice that on here is the scoreboard, that we assume that'd be the one down the Sheffield Recreation Ground,
Mhm.
and it is up and going.
It was functioning well on Saturday at the football. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Richards.
Comment. I do like our graphs. I mean, simply these graphs that you can sort of see over a period of time what's going on. I really appreciate the upgrade on those graphs all the time, and you see how things are slowly dropping off.
Yeah, they are.
Good. Yes, Councillor Blenkhorn.
Just a question for the planning department. What's the definition of a low risk development?
Through the chair, the definitions are common statewide, defined by CBOS, State Government Agency. Low risk is might be something like a deck, or it's where basically you can be an owner builder. You don't have to be certified, so it's really only minor work. Still just required to notify council.
Would that be a shed under 6 by 6 metres, for instance?
Not a shed. I can forward you a copy of
Yeah,
the different
thanks.
categories if you like.
Yep. Well, just have the understanding that low risk work would be a shed under 6 by 6 and probably 2.4 metres in height, where you would need planning approval to some degree. Is that right? Or?
Well, the building and planning processes are different, so it depends on the location of it as to whether a planning permit is required, but I can forward you through those classifications if you like.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Blenkhorn. Thank you, Mrs. Phoebe, for your response to that question. Are there any more questions or comments about the Building Department report? And we have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll go on to 11.2, Planning and Development Application Status Report. Once again, we have Jan Phoebe, our Manager of Development Regulatory Services, who has prepared the report. We have a recommendation that the report by the Manager of Development Regulatory Services concerning planning and development application status report, April 2024, be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards and Councillor Dickinson. I'll open it up for comments or questions. No one tonight? Okay then. Well, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We'll go over to the next one, which is 11.3. We have the naming of a road, the existing access road servicing land volume. We have a report by Andrew Newton, our statutory planning officer, and we have on page 15, we have the officer's comments and conclusions. There's quite a lot of detail in there, from applying principles and qualifying terminology and directional indicators and so on. There is quite a lot of detail there that had to be acknowledged when deciding that this was going to go ahead. But we do have a recommendation that the report by the statutory planning officer concerning naming of a road, existing access road servicing land, volume 182774, folio 1, be received and the council name the user road off the junction of Cradle Mountain Road, 5 Mile Rise Road. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Richards. Are there any comments or questions about that? Councillor Richards.
Just a comment. Look, 5 Mile Rise Road was always known in that, roughly in that area. So it actually came out of the post office tree, which is slightly further up the road, which the BDL used to use. So I think it's a good idea to name it 5 Mile Rise Road, because I mean that was the name of the original track that people used 30 years ago. So I just think there's enough for the
very applicable name
for the area there. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for that comment. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hughes.
I totally agree with Councillor Richards that the 5 Mile Rise Road was used for moving stock from far as Westbridge right through there over the what was known as Van Diemen Extraction, and to the Middlesex and further on down through the Surrey Lanes and Hampshire as well.
Yeah, a lot of history goes into that, so it's important that that's acknowledged. And as Councillor Richards said, that's what it's been called. So it's good that being able to go through the proper process of road naming, that we're able to keep that name. So that's a good outcome, and we thank Mr Newton for his diligence in preparing that report. So we have a recommendation that the council name the user road off the junction of Cradle Mountain Road, 5 Mile Rise Road. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We'll go on to 12, which is the Office of the General Manager, the reviewing of safeguarding children and young people policy. So there has been a few pages there that we need to look at. The report author is Kate Milford, our Workplace Health and Safety Risk and Training Officer at Council, and Gerald, our General Manager, has authorised this. So we have a recommendation that the report by the WHS Risk and Training Officer concerning review of safeguarding children and young people policy be received, and that council adopt the amended safeguarding children and young people policy as attached to this report with immediate effect. Could I have someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Haig, Councillor Hughes. I'll open it up for any comments or questions if you would like to make a comment.
I think it's fairly straightforward, Madam Mayor. Back in January, Council adopted this policy, to reflect outcomes of the Royal Commission. Since then, there was a slight change in the organisation structure with the responsibilities with the HR officer and workplace health and safety officer. So the changes to the policy just reflect the changes to the responsibilities that those two officers undertake. So I think it's fairly straightforward. We'd previously discussed the policy in the council workshop and then at the council meetings. Just a very minor change.
Any comments or questions? And we have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we will move on to 13, which is Corporate and Business Services Department. Council allowances and expenses for the quarter ended March 2024. we have a recommendation that the report by the team leader of finance concerning council allowances and expenses for the quarter ended March 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Dickinson. So I will open it up for comments and questions, but I think, Mr Mayor, are you going to make a report on that? Is that why you moved seats? I thought, oh, you've moved
the general manager indicated I should.
into the seat, so I thought.
He's ready for the next item. I'll take any questions.
So our general manager will take any questions
I
that,
think it's fairly
that you
straightforward.
have. All right. All right, I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? That is carried. All right. So we've now got Mr Magor in the chair. We've got Infrastructure and Assets Department, the Railton Flood Mitigation Project. Our report author is Jonathan Magor, Manager of Infrastructure and Assets. And we do have a recommendation that the report by the Manager of Infrastructure and Assets concerning Railton Flood Mitigation Project be received. We do have 7 points there. Do you want me to read them all out, or I think we can just table those? Leave them there. So that is the recommendation that this will be received with those 7 points. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Hay, Councillor Richards. I'm going to hand it over now to Jonathan Magor to take us through the report, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess this has been, I suppose, some time coming in that even from the early days, it was going to be difficult to protect Railton from the flood event equivalent to that happened in 2011. So some early work was done by a consultant that indicated it might be about a $2 million project to widen Redwater Creek to basically resolve the issues that led to the flooding in 2011. Some further work was done on that with some updated modelling by Insura, so the consulting arm of Hydro Tasmania. The scope was refined, the flow rates actually increased over what we first thought, and the project ended up being around the $11 million mark from the Insura process. So council then used that figure to access funding from the Community Development Grant, a federal program, and also for basically a third of that size project. Council committed to a third of it as well, and council were also successful in securing a similar amount from the state government. So third funding from all levels of government. The design for that was then taken to the Railton community, and most directly those that fronted onto Redwater Creek or backed onto Redwater Creek is probably more the case than fronting onto it. The scope and type of works that was identified wasn't very palatable at all to those residents.
Well, one person.
Excuse me, Councillor Blink.
Person.
I will let Jonathan Magor finish the report, please.
Palatable. How many people wasn't it
Councillor
palatable?
Blackburn, I will ask you to refrain, please, and would you like to continue the report, please?
So then we agreed to look at what alternatives might be available to avoid that. There's also quite a lot of environmental factors we need to consider with the creek, the Central North Burren crayfish and other things. That we then, I suppose one of the options was to put a large underground culvert down Morrison Street was identified. That was a significantly longer route and a more expensive option, and it wouldn't resolve all of the issues that were identified. But when that was realised, there was another iteration that led to a staged project. So a project that would ultimately protect Railton from that flooding that was occurred in 2000.
Can I get a definition on iteration?
We'll have questions at the end of the report, please, Councillor Blenkhorn.
So yeah, the first stage of that was basically to take up that full amount of funding that we had available. So that was around the $13 million construction for that first part, which would do a significant amount of work in improving the situation at the moment. We took that to the Community Development Grant funding and also to the state government in the hope that we'd be able to vary our approvals. because it is a change in what we were proposing to deliver. So the expectation from the funding program that we would actually protect, whereas this would be the project that we could fund would be towards protecting from the 2011 event. The other part of it too is each of the original items that we were delivering under the creek widening and the levy proposal were identified within the agreement, so that those activities had to be varied as well. So typically they only approve a variation of the activities of 25%. So because our project was quite different than what it was first put forward to be, it was outside of the scope that they could amend the agreement for. The other side of it is I suppose with all this work that's happened, then the time has gone on because of the complications associated with it. And effectively, we've only got a bit over 12 months to complete all of that work. And so the ability to get a tender out and a construction project complete within that time frame is not practical or possible either. So there's a number of things that basically leads to us not being able to deliver this project in the time frame that's available to us. And certainly the funding wouldn't be available because of the agreed works or the works that have been scoped. So that sort of led to, I suppose, trying to recoup some of that cost that we've incurred so far if we can't progress with the project. So initial conversations have been had with both the community development grant funding and the state funding about going a third in what we've spent today. At the moment, they're open to that. Railton is, I guess, touched now on the recommendation. I'll go through those. So council seeks to work with the government agencies that may be able to help them create and maintain a flood warning system for Railton. So that might be a combination of rain gauges, apps and stream monitoring.
What an absolute joke.
Thank you,
What an
Councillor
absolute
Blencourt. I
joke.
won't ask you again. Thank you.
The other, the second one there is opportunistic upgrades to capacity increases of the stormwater system in Redwater Creek, that we continue with that work. So by all accounts, the work that we did at the railway line in town had quite a big difference or quite a big improvement on the flow capacity of the creek. There's other bits and pieces that we've done over time. So whenever we have had a flooding event, when we've gone back in and repaired that, we've sort of rock battered the embankments, tried to maximise the capacity of the creek wherever we can. I suppose the advantage with doing that, if it's a declared disaster, we're potentially going to get some of that assistance money back in restoring the creek and potentially even making it better through that work. Third one there is that we do look for further funding opportunities for a larger project, but also noting that each level of government are looking at what they've termed good value, so cost benefit ratio. So spending quite a significant amount of money to protect Railton has got to stack up against their other projects, noting that there's been extensive flooding across mainland areas, which there's a lot of demand on the funding. And then basically advise the state government that we cannot proceed under the current requirements, and also the federal government's community development grant program, and that we seek third contributions from the state government and also the federal government under those agreements that we've got, and let the community know where the project's at.
Right. Thank you for that comprehensive report, because that's going back over certainly a long period of time. Thank you, Clive, for coming tonight. Thank you for that. And so we do have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to ask, has anyone got any questions or comments? And please ask respectfully, and Jonathan will be able to answer your questions if you have any. Councillor Blencourt.
Yes, Mr. Magor, who is the department you have been liaising with over this matter?
Federal or state?
Or both? Who's the department?
So it's the administrators of the Community Development Grant Program.
Administrators.
Yeah. I'd have to look at what department they sit under the range. Yeah, it is with the program coordinators, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the state money is in the hands of the State Emergency Service at the moment. So we would be so the state has given us, allocated that money to this project for the time being, but they are advising not only us, but also other projects that haven't proceeded, that at the end of this financial year, that money will go back into the state government, potentially used for other things. So they're not saying they wouldn't fund another project into the future, but yeah, at this point in time, they're not going to keep basically in the SES bank accounts, but it goes back to the state government.
Yeah, I also, through you, Madam Mayor, participated in the discussions, but I think in the end, as Mr. McGaw said in the paper, it came down to two issues. One, there would have been a greater change, I think, than 20% than the original project. We couldn't meet that. And secondly was the timelines, and they were very adamant that that was the cut-off date. So the federal government made an announcement. I think it's them trying to claw back funding right across everywhere, and there's certainly been major projects in other states where they haven't been able to deliver on this time frame and have had to send the money back. So we got caught up in two areas, but they did mention that there would be other programs available. So all the work that's been done in the studies will be useful, but I think in any future application, we'd be saying, look, we want to try and address this 1 in 20-year flood event, how that will then stack up against New South Wales and Victoria and Queensland, where they've had massive floods. Yeah, because they were oversubscribed last time by about 3 to 1. So, yeah, as you're aware, there's been massive flood events in other states, and we're going to be up against those. Yeah, but there were two issues really that we couldn't meet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I recall when we were first, well, we've had so many changes to the potential plan, but I remember hearing that we would be sort of waiting to do anything in Railton while the works were going on in Latrobe, and so we'll sort of do that job first and then do Railton. But now we've run out of time to do things in Railton. So, I mean, that just seems that we've handled that badly.
Yeah. No, I think we were, what we said, I think we were learning from the experiences.
Yes,
but we were learning from the experiences, particularly to do with environmental factors. But even if you had the time, this would have still failed under these programs because we couldn't have, with the changes to the project and not being able to meet that, it still would have fallen over because they're adamant once you had major changes, it didn't meet the guidelines anymore. That was the fact. So timelines were one, but it also didn't meet the criteria to protect it from a 2011 flood event.
Right.
And we haven't been able to do that.
The other thing we would want was the contractor for Latrobe to be in a position where they would tender for this project. So that wasn't excluded, but even if this had ran its timeline, it still would have allowed for that. But this progressed as you know, we haven't put this on hold necessarily because of that, but to actually have a window where they could tender for it.
But another contractor could have.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about that. Anyway, I personally find it incredibly difficult to come to grips with this. I'm concerned that we've spent a lot of money and we've got absolutely nothing to show for it. I know we've got learnings and that, but in the meantime, we've got no sort of comfort that we can give to Railton residents. From the first flood that happened 13 years ago, it seems that we haven't come far enough. Is there yes, I really would be happy to be trying to get onto the the early warning system as soon as we can. And I would hope that we can get some money out of the grant diverted to that. But in the meantime, is there a system that landowners can use to sort of protect their own properties, to put fences up, barriers? Can they build berms? Can they do things like that? Can they be proactive in trying to protect their own properties?
There's two main elements I see. One is a very short time frame between getting advice that there might be a flood situation and it arriving, or even getting a warning and it not that actual rain pattern not occurring and that don't get flooded. So to actually get that warning and then start building something or putting something in place is a very short time frame. So whether it's something that was more permanent in terms of raising.
Sorry, that's what I was thinking.
Raising floor levels and things like that. But if you raise a floor level above the flood height, you're protecting what's inside the building, but you're not necessarily making it any safer to get in or out of a property that's flooded. So, and you would want to be trying to evacuate those people at the same time, because you don't know what that flood's going to do. And then if the water's a metre high out in the street and flowing quite fast, you're not going to be wanting to try to drive through and rescue those people and evacuate at that point in time. So it would allow, an evacuation and hopefully a dry floor to come home to by raising levels. But you certainly wouldn't want people staying at home because they think they're in the clear effectively.
But can they build a berm or put fencing up, build a concrete wall or something to keep water out of their place?
Unless it had planning implications or something, I don't know whether it would need approval, depending on what the scope of what they were trying to achieve. But and the other side of it is, whether they're actually making the situation worse for a neighbour by doing that work. Instead of their property being part of a combined overland flow path, they're completely blocking the water out of there and sending it to their neighbours and increasing the flood risk there.
Yes, it certainly has been a very complex process, there's no doubt about that. And we did have a meeting with some of the stakeholders in February, so with their knowledge of the Railton area. So with all that information and knowledge, we're hoping we can do something, but we certainly have the impact has been lessened because of the work we've done down there. Councillor Blenghorn.
Just a question, Mr Magor. Who was the preferred tenderer for the Railton flood mitigation project?
Oh, we didn't have a third one.
All right, well, sounds like there was.
No, we just wanted as many options as what's available. There probably wouldn't be a lot of tenderers, so anybody that's in that market that's potentially able to tender for it, we would want them to be able to tender for it.
Would that be Bridge Pro Engineering, for instance?
They're the ones that did the Latrobe project,
So they
but
probably
they're not preferred by any stretch of the imagination.
not preferred.
I think the other thing with the timeline was mentioned, it's 13 years, that we lobbied for a number of years, even well before the Latrobe. They had the by-election at Latrobe when Senator Lambie had to stand down. Their studies were only finished like 3 weeks before that election and got funded overnight. It was still a couple of years after that, through Senator Martin with the federal election that, Kentish got the funding. So it wasn't through the want of trying, it was in all our priority budgets. We just weren't getting a Guernsey. So that certainly delayed the project for a number of years until we had the commitment to fund it. We really couldn't get into the detailed studies. But I do understand, the frustrations, and I've certainly been frustrated with it. But I think the other thing, when they did the more detailed modelling, the state government did that statewide. They basically doubled the flow rates, Jonathan, which.
Yeah, I guess that's it is a significant factor in this. That the current Redwater Creek carries about 25 cubic metres a second, but to actually protect you know, that the water that was across the town in 2011 plus the climate change allowances, we need to carry about 3 times that through the creek or through an alternative culvert. So instead of 24 cubic metres a second, we've got to take around 75 cubic metres a second. So it's really hard to achieve that on the existing watercourse alignment. So whether we need to consider resetting the goals in terms of not as big an event as what occurred in 2011, but maybe it's, you know, which was determined to be a 1 in 100 year event. So, you know, maybe a 20 year or a 50 year or something might be more achievable within that footprint. It's just a real shame that not only the location of the township in terms of Redwater Creek, it's right in the bottom of the valley in effect, and there is very little buffer space to do anything. Well, there is no buffer space, it's basically in people's backyards.
And so when the costs then increased because of the extra flow rates went from 15 to over 40 million, it was then, like, even if you had the money, Council 1 would have to be able to fund it. And I guess then you start looking at the cost benefit, the cost of damage. And I guess one of the frustrations too is that people that own land there, it basically becomes quarantine. So one is protecting property, but it's certainly without any flood mitigation scheme, you can't develop quite a lot of parcels of land there that if it was protected, you'd be able to. So it is a bit of a double whammy, but we've certainly done all we can to bring it to fruition.
Councillor Richards?
Yeah, look, I can understand the frustration around the table, but we've got to be realistic here. My understanding is we've probably still got our $5 million that we were putting up. And what I'd like to see, if we can't do anything at this stage, as it looks like here, we make a really strong commitment though that every 6 or 12 months we actually make sure all those drains and all those areas that were locked up in 2011 are actually checked on, you know, on a very consistent basis, so that if there is some sort of disaster coming up, that there really should be no impediment to those drains and whatever. And I think probably if you look at it, the work that was done after 2011, maybe the 16 and 22 events were smaller because the work that was previously done there to keep that cleaned out. So the 2016 or 22 one could have been quite similar to 11 if we hadn't done that work. So I just think that as a council, we need to make a commitment that whatever drainage is, you know, within and around the town is made sure that is open, cleaned right out very consistently. So I understand the frustration, but I think as a council, there's no way we can go ahead and fund a $45 million project unless we get a lot of that funding. And even if we was to go a third in that, I'm not sure whether we could actually then even fund it, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. All right, Councillor Blencorn.
I'd like to make an amendment to the dot points that we're looking at voting on tonight. Recommendations that one of the issues that were highlighted with previous work that we've had done was the bridge up on Dowbiggin Street. The opening of that bridge at its current state is nowhere near open and enough to let the water flows down through the town. What I'd like to do tonight is get some support around this council table that we work hastily to replace and put a new bridge in place along Dowbiggin Street and a bit of creek realignment to get some water through under that bridge. And that will take away some flooding risk to the top end of the town. And it was highlighted that this bridge should be replaced. So I would like to make an amendment to that wording that we replace the Dowbiggin Street Bridge as hastily as possible so we can mitigate some of the risk to the Bralton community.
So you'd like to add that to the 7 points and make it point 8, that we put a new bridge in at Dowbiggin Street and as quick as possible. where there would have to be a costing process involved in that, and I don't know
If
whether.
we've got $5 million, I think we'll be able to sort that out pretty good.
So can I ask you what the situation would be there?
Comment on that. I guess there are people that live on Redwater Creek downstream of that point that are very concerned about allowing more water into the creek alignment itself. At the moment, it's sort of spread out across town above Dowbiggin Street. So you open the Dowbiggin Street opening, it's going to channel more water down the creek alignment and potentially negatively impact some of those people that live right adjacent to the creek. So I guess that's the only thing that's kind of, it was proposed as a suite of things to do to upgrade that, not in isolation. So I'm just concerned that in isolation, it might have a negative impact somewhere else.
So
I just wonder, Councillor Bengel, maybe subject to, doing some investigations on the potential impact on other property owners. So whether you want to put that as a rider and then bring it back to council. So if there have been people express concern.
Well, I think this was highlighted in some reports that we had, that the opening of that bridge wasn't wide enough to let some of the flows down there. And, if we're going to get logs built up in front of that bridge, I think we're creating more of a problem.
So would you also, I guess, to abate some of the concerns raised, would that then also have the detention basin adjacent to it, Mr. McGraw, or not? Does it go hand in hand or not?
Yeah, it's probably more of a diversion fund than a detention basin. So it's really to try to funnel that water into the creek rather than have it spread across Dowbiggin Street. So it's not really there to hold extensive volumes of water, because the amount of water coming down the creek, realistically, that's going to fill up really, really quickly in terms of what the flood event is. So it's more to channel that water to that point. So the other thing could potentially do is look at what would be the best to do without $5 million for the township of Ratton. But I guess it's whether you're trying to protect everyone from a lesser event or do works towards protecting for that bigger event if you were to get all that other money lined up at some point in the future. So, do you spend money to try to get everybody up to a 1 in 10 year event or whatever it might be, or do you do a couple of these big things that do really rely on a heap of extra money before they're going to provide any real benefit?
right, okay. Look, I was going to go back to the amendment, but yes.
I was going to second the amendment, but can I do that first and then ask?
All right, so the amendment is that point 8 is that we spend some money to put a new bridge at Dowbiggin Street and do it as quickly as possible. So that's the amendment that you want to make. So you're moving for the amendment and Councillor Thwaites, you're seconding that. So I'll open that up for just a comment per person. So if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, my comment or question was, I thought that opening, increasing the opening under that Dowbiggin Street Bridge was something that was going to happen in any situation anyway. So, I can't see an issue unless it's, getting payment for it out of a bigger fund as part of a package. I take on board what you're saying about the increasing the flow into the creek, but that's what creeks do. I mean, that's the bridge is stopping water going in the creek now, and the natural tendency is for water to go down the creek. So we're only allowing the creek to function as it should function as a creek in a flood situation. So I see it's pretty straightforward that because I'm not the engineer, but and I acknowledge that, but I thought that it had to be done in all situations anyway.
Well, as part of a solution, it had to be done, but not necessarily in isolation to everything else at the same time. I guess you put this scenario, at the moment, you've got quite extensive areas that might have water flowing that deep that you could wade through, for example. that you put all that water into Redwater Creek and increase the velocity and the depth of the water, it becomes an unsafe flow or a more unsafe flow than what it is already. Whereas a lower depth of water across a bigger area is probably not as unsafe.
All right, well, we have an amendment. We have a mover and a seconder to the amendment. And I'm going to put that to the vote that we include number 8 to the recommendation. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 2 against. So that has been carried. So now we have the recommendation now has 8 points to it. So we will include 8 that's been passed, that we look at doing something to the bridge, that we're going and do it as soon as possible.
Mayor Hagley, may I ask who the 2 against?
Councillor Richards, Councillor Hagley.
Thank you.
There's only 8 of us here tonight and Councillor Lane's not here.
Thank you.
Everybody and the other 6. So that was carried. So now we have a recommendation including point 8. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Well, that was a good conversation, and thank you for all your questions and comments, and thank you very much for the way you were able to respond to all the questions. It certainly has been a very complex process, but thank you to the General Manager for guiding us through that process. Right, okay, so we'll go over to 14.2, and we have the draft curbside collection services policy. And Mr. Magor has done the report for that, and we have a recommendation that the report by the Manager of Infrastructure and Assets concerning draft curbside collection services policy be received, that Council adopts with immediate effect the curbside collection services policy, or 2, that Council not have a curbside collection services policy, or 3, that the policy be adopted subject to the following changes being made. So could I have someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Twaits.
Just point 1.
Oh, so you want to move point 1?
Correct.
Right, so Councillor Twaits, you're moving point 1. Can I have a seconder for point 1? Councillor Richards. So I'll, any comments or questions about point 1? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So point 1 is carried. Right. Thank you. Number 15, Operations Department nil information. 16.1, Council Forums. The author is our General Manager. The Council Forum was held on the 7th of May. The following subjects were discussed: Calibre, Penzance Place DA, proposal to subdivide at Kentish Park, Tas Water Refiller Program, revised budget timetable and sale of land update. There is a recommendation that information on topics discussed at the 7th of May 2024 Council Forum be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Haig. Any comments? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We'll go on to 16.2. We have our delegates' reports. There's my list of meetings and events that I have attended, and we also have Deputy Mayor Penny Lane with her events as well. We have a recommendation that delegates' reports be received and noted. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig, Councillor Hughes. I'll open it up for discussion. Is there anybody that would like to report on any meetings that they've been to? Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Right. Early this month, I attended the Mount Roland Land Care meeting, and there's a lot of work going on there. On May the 18th and Saturday, down at Rowton, the Scouts planted 250 trees near Redwater Creek. And then the next one is John Kelly out the road here is a organic farmer, at Stratton Farm at 191 West Nook Road, Sheffield. He's putting in 2,000 trees down along the Don River. So the dates are tomorrow is the 22nd of May, 3 o'clock to 5. Free sausage sizzle, John's putting that on. Wednesday, 29th of May, 3 to 5, same thing again. And Sunday, the 2nd of June at 10 a.m. to 12 noon and a free lunch there as well. Thursday on May the 16th, John donated the trees and that, and the Sheffield School kids went down on John and Megan's place there and put the trees in down there. The reason is John's doing it, he's looking for better quality and better life for the Don River, which has been abused over the last, ever since I can remember. Now, Anzac Day, it was the biggest attendance I have seen for years up here in Sheffield. The town hall was packed, and I was pleased to see that even the Lions Club this year marched the first time the Anzac Day. That was pretty good, and also the Roland Masonic, so that was really good. I did mention before the new scoreboard's up and going, and the siren, it sounds like an AFL siren, so you can hear it up the main street. And there was a good roll up again on Saturday, but unfortunately Sheffield's too strong for the opposition teams. So that's all I have.
Good, thank you, Councillor Hughes. Has anyone else got any reports or any meetings that they've been to? Councillor Cassidy.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate the Anzac Day turnout. Dawn service in Broughton was astronomical. The amount of people there was just wonderful to see.
So, Councillor Richards, how did Wilmot go?
Yeah, no, we had another really good day with a couple of descendants of Thomas Vernon, giving a family report on him. So it was really good. I think it was around about 115 people there on the day. So it seems to be fairly static. Around 100 to 120 is what we tend to attract. Even had a few mainlanders there. I got to meet a lady. We actually bought a farm, but I hadn't seen her for 53 years. So yeah, it's I think as everywhere, the Anzac services seem to
very well attended.
Came back to popularity.
That's right.
So it's great to see.
And it was beautiful standing down at the dawn service here in Sheffield, and you would have noticed it at Rowton. Just the sunrise was spectacular. It was just beautiful. So they were very well attended. So we're very thankful for that. It was a little cold out on the street waiting for the bus to come for the Latrobe band, but everybody survived, and there was great camaraderie as everyone was chattering and talking. It was really lovely. I think the other thing that I attended on the 9th was the Masters Rowing Championship. It was really good to see so many people coming through Sheffield, staying here, using the cafes and restaurants. But it was just fantastic down at the lake, and the weather was beautiful down there. I went down on the Thursday, and it was just lovely down there. We've got the National Rowing Championships next year in March. And also I wanted to comment on the Weindorfer Memorial service up at Wilmot. That was a really lovely service too, and the weather was once again beautiful, and the bus trip out to Cradle Mountain. It was just a lovely day. I think the weather really helped a lot because it was a little bit coolish, but the blue sky, sunshine, it was lovely. So has anyone else got any reports that they would like to table tonight? Councillor Blinkhorn.
Yeah, just neighbourhood centre meeting. It's great to catch up with them down there. Also working over the minutes on they work with the King's Hall as well, same committee. It's good that they really get together and talk about the issues and that. But one of the things I'll just bring up is the high power bill in the King's Hall. The strip heaters in the King's Hall seem to be using a lot of power. I think the Secretary Treasurer was made the comment, I think it was something like $400 a year difference between the power in the neighbourhood centre compared to the King's Hall. So there's a lot of cost in them old strip heaters.
So just to clarify that, councillor Blenkhorn, the neighbourhood centre is not very big, whereas the King's Hall is quite a big
Supper room, sorry.
supper room.
Just in the supper room. yes.
Supper room. I was going to say $400. It would be obvious it would be an increase.
Yeah, but no, that's just in the supper.
Supper room.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the strip heaters in the supper room.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, maybe they, the committee need to look at that and maybe put in a budget allocation or get some costing done for different heaters. So maybe the committee could look into that and present it to council and see if there's a more efficient way of doing the heating in the supper room.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
The days of the old pull cord strip heaters are long gone.
Yeah, there's a lot more efficiency in heaters these days. Thank you for that. Well, if you could look into that, that'd be great. Thank you, councillor Dickinson.
I'd just like to mention that councillor Haig and myself had a meeting with the state coordinator of Neighbourhood Watch.
Oh,
And the establishment of Neighbourhood Watch for the Kentish area is progressing well.
and thank you for putting your hand up to be the leader in Sheffield. Yeah,
For the moment.
that's for the moment. Once you're in the position, it's hard to get out of it, I can say, councillor Dickinson. But anyway, thank you for doing that because it certainly is a safety issue. And if we've got Neighbourhood Watch functioning well in the town, that'll be fantastic. Is it only Sheffield you're talking about?
No, it's going to be all of Kentish.
All of Kentish?
Yes, so we'll take in Wilmot and Ralton and
Wonderful.
smaller localities.
Yes, so it'll be Kentish Neighbourhood Watch. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Good. Well, all the best, and I hope it continues to go well for you. Get some people supporting you in this particular project. It's great. Anyone else? All right. Well, we have a mover and a seconder that the delegates' reports be received and noticed. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. Council decision status report. We have a recommendation that the April 2024 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. There were 10 pages for the report there. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hay, Councillor Cassidy. I'll open it for discussion. Anyone got any comments or questions? Nothing.
Just looking for it, sorry. I think
You're right.
no, short answer, thank you.
Make a comment.
Yes, Councillor
Finished
Richards.
the Stock underpass at Wilmot, the road sealed, really good. You know, they sealed right back to where the cattle used to cross as well, so it's made a huge difference. And the comments are, you know, you have some just nice happen, not if you stop there, all the road can know.
That's good, and it'll keep the road nice and clean.
And
Well, I know that the one down towards Elizabethtown, that's fantastic. That'll be underpass there for the cattle. It's really good. All right, well, that's a good outcome there for Wilmot as well. Are there any other comments about the status report? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Right, we have the Community Information Evening Notes. We have a recommendation that the notes of the Railton Community Information Evening held on the 4th of April 2024 and the notes of the Lower Barrington, Acacia Hill, South Brayton Community Information Evening held on the 30th of April 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Thank you, Councillor Richards. Councillor Cassidy. Any comments about those two community meetings? No. Councillor Richards.
I can't comment on the rough one, but it is nice now. We're starting to get a few more people at the Lower Barrington. A few years ago, I remember, you know, we did 3 or 4 or 5 or something. So yeah, the last few have been 10 or a dozen or up to 15 of them. So I think it's must have been a note with people.
And it's good because they come along and they're very supportive of council and they're really proactive in what they want for their area. So it's always a pleasure to go down there and have really positive conversations and discussions with them. So thank you for that comment. Councillor Thwaites.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. It was great to read those, and my apologies for not being able to attend. But yeah, they're very informative, and the notes make a make a really good rating. So
Oh,
you're doing well, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
thank you. Good. And for the person who was typing up all the, I think Councillor Lane actually did the Lower Barrington ones, and then I think we had Nairi doing the Railton ones. So we're very thankful for that. So we have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Committees of Council, 17.1. We have the Sheffield Recreation Precinct Advisory Committee meeting held on the 3rd of April. We have a recommendation that the unconfirmed minutes of the Sheffield Recreation Precinct Advisory Committee meeting held on the 3rd of April 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Hughes. So I'll open it up for comments or questions. Councillor Hughes.
On that night there, Councillor Penny Lane couldn't come along, so I chaired the meeting, and a lot of things went along pretty well. Forward and that representation from all the different groups, and I'm pleased we have got a good working relationship with the recreation group.
That's good. Yeah, such an important hub down that end of town, and there's so much activity going on down there with the various teams. So it's good to have that advisory committee up and running and doing well.
And I'd like to comment too that the rubbish bins right around the ground, there was no rubbish lying around after the football. So it was really well done.
Excellent. That's really good to hear. Yes, because when you get a big crowd at a football game like that, you know, there's certainly the possibility that could happen. But yeah, so it's very, very good that everyone was very aware that their cleaning up needed to be done. Thank you very much. I might have that. Are there any other comments about the Recreation Precinct Advisory Committee? Councillor Richards.
Well, it's not quite about that, but while we're on the Sheffield Rec, I think it was at a forum, someone talked about trying to get maybe the cricket football clubs with the route and all the clubs together and have some more meet and see with and so maybe some extra utilisation of route. Have we sort of, has that moved in any direction?
We were looking at a letter today that we received, and we're sort of following that up. But I think the last...
Just trying to find time. I think every mayor was keen for me to be involved, and I know we're out 4 nights next week. It's just trying to
organise a meeting.
So
we certainly haven't put it on the back burner, but we are looking, and we did look at the letter that came from Max Brown and I think it was Craig Davies.
Yes,
So we're looking at somebody from the northwest.
I still think that's probably the answer, is to see if you can bring them under that special committee.
So we'll still be following that through. Yeah. Right. Any other comments? All right. Well, we have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. 18, Council Joint Authorities and other committees nil. Urgent business nil. Closed meeting. A recommendation that the following items be discussed in closed session. Apologies, leave of absence, confirmation of minutes, closed council decision, status report. So I'll could I have someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Richards, Councillor Haig. Any comments there? That's there. The topics are going to closed session. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. And this concludes our...
Before we do, could I ask a question?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I don't think any of the special committees have received their $1,850 funding, yearly funding. I know the Hall Committee, the Tourist and
Make a note.
Barrington Hall had last Thursday when Penny sent me a note, so just if we could make a note.
Yeah, no, it should have been out by now.
Yep. Okay, we'll make a note. Thank you for that, Councillor Richards. Councillor Twaits.
Question, Madam Mayor, is this our General Manager's last council meeting?
It is, and I was going to acknowledge that at the end of the closed meeting, but would you like me to acknowledge it now? Because it's open to the public.
This way it'll be in a public record.
Okay. I'll make my speech.
Oh,
Two
yeah.
pages. Yeah, that's right, Councillor Thwaites. It is our General Manager's last meeting at Kentish, our last council meeting at Kentish. So I have got a few comments that I would like to make. I was saving it up to close, but I think you're right. It'd be good as we're live streaming and anybody that's watching, it's a public document. So in farewelling Gerald tonight at his last council meeting here in Sheffield, I'd like to reflect on his outstanding contribution to our municipality. From agreeing to come to Kentish for 3 months and then staying for 14 years is no mean feat in itself. I'm sure it is our wonderful community, our lovely people and beautiful area that attracted Gerald in the first place and caused him to stay for this long duration. So what can we say about his tenure here at Kentish? Well, I think the main thing would be the connection with the community. Not only the people, but the opportunities for economic development that inspired him to stay and to exercise his skills and knowledge in local government. The other thing that I think we need to recognise is the Municipal Alliance that has been the driving force behind the resource sharing with Latrobe Council. I wonder how sustainable Kentish would be today if we were not resource sharing with Latrobe. It has been and still is a remarkable partnership and one that I have come to value highly in my time on council. So some of the achievements which I know Gerald can be very proud of are the Sheffield Arts Centre and the Sheffield Visitor Information Centre, when we got the loan for $5.1 million, which was an interest-free for 3 years. The Medical Centre and the Bike Park, Sheffield Refresh, which was one of the first projects I worked on when I first came into council, the mountain bike trails, the streetscape at Wilmot. There may be larger projects, but Gerald has always supported local organisations through the budget process and attending functions that occurred during the year. So we're very grateful that Gerald embraced his role as GM at Kentish. There have been difficult decisions made over the years, but for progress to happen, these decisions need to be made. Tech One has been challenging, but the importance of IT in any organisation is unquestionable, as it is imperative to be up to date with modern technology. We are seeing the benefits of this system and will continue to do so in the years to come. The budget's always been scrutinised, but with shortages of skilled workers and materials and rising costs over all areas of council, there had to be some innovative and creative ways to maintain a level of service to the community and support projects each year. Council is a very complex organisation, but we've been very thankful for Gerald's experience and knowledge as he's led discussions and guided us through all the detail of each project. Thank you for your hard work and also for your commitment. It's hard to say goodbye. Commitment and your courage and your determination and wisdom, which you've displayed without wavering over your term at Kentish. 14 years, it's been a long time. I've been on the council for 9.5 of those. Kentish is still a thriving municipality through great leadership and teamwork. We have always appreciated your connection to Kentish and we wish you all the best for your retirement. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kate. You make me cry. Yes, I've been attending council meetings for 40 years and it's always been a pleasure to come here. And look, I've been very fortunate in that 14 years to serve with firstly Don and then Tim and now Kate. I think the community's been very privileged to have 3 great mayors and a united council. I mean, things are debated like they were tonight quite strongly, but after that, everyone gets together and can sit around the table and have a chat. I think that's a success of a good council. I've also been very fortunate to have a very good team and a management team, and particularly Jan and Jono that has been on the whole journey. It did take a while to get Jono to come up here, but he's loved it. And yeah, I think wish everyone all the best for the future. Kentish has got a bright future. I agree with you. If we didn't go down the shared services, it would have been very difficult in the environment to attract the staff that's needed. Yeah, it's a very complex society we now live in, and not some of the changes are not always for the best, but that's the world we live in, and you need to work with what you got. But yeah, I do love coming up here, and every day you come up and I can remember years ago going to a public meeting, and when they talked about the cable car and the passion about the mountain, and they see that mountain and they feel as though they're home. And I guess as a new person coming into the area, you wonder what that means. But I do see it, because when I come up here myself, it's always different. And I talked to a couple of staff members today that have a view of the mountain, and they said the same thing. They look out the window and it's always different. But it is a feature that I think that unites the communities. And yes, I wish everyone all the best for the future. I'm a ratepayer in the area. I will take a keen interest in council affairs, and certainly wish everyone all the best for the future, and thank everyone for their support. So thank you.
Thank you. We've certainly appreciated everything that you've done for Kentish over the years. Certainly we are where we are today because of your commitment and leadership. So otherwise, I don't know where we would be, but we've got a wonderful community, and we'll continue to.
I will add it is a team effort. People can't do things individually.
On their
so yeah, everyone needs to work together, and generally speaking, that's been the case here.
Right. All right. Anyone else want to make a comment or say anything? Yes, thank you, Councillor Richards.
Ably, I've come on 10 years ago roughly. And I remember I was just heading in to pick the boys up to bring them over to underage cricket, and my phone rang, and I actually didn't know I'd been elected, and it was Gerald, and he said, "I'll just let you know you've been elected to the council, and could we catch up at some stage?" And I said, "Look, I'll come to Sheffield this afternoon with the boys." And so I dropped them off, and I think it was about 4 o'clock. We met down in the cafe down there and had a coffee, and I don't know what Gerald had heard about me or what, but I remember he said, "I hope you won't be a problem to us." I can't recall that. That was the words he said. I like people with strong opinions, but he said, "I hope you're not a problem." And I said to Gerald, "The one thing that I will assure you is that I'll be a team player." Hopefully, that's what I've done, been a team player for you. I'd like to have my opinion when I need to, but like everyone else in the room here, respected your opinions as well, Gerald, and we often laugh about when you refer to the Northern Midlands, but to me, I actually enjoy that because it shows that you've been there and had some sort of an issue similar that we can learn from. So just thank you.
Thank you. I can't remember that.
I just wonder if you're getting your contract work anyway, you'll say, "Well, when I was at Kentish, I was..."
You're right.
You spiked his coffee, did you?
Councillor Twaits.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Having worked with Gerald for such a long time, and I guess there's a couple of functions ahead. I'd like to save some stories there, but what I for right now is that Gerald's always been so good to work with, and you can talk to him about anything. You can disagree, and I've just found him to be so respectful of everybody on all occasions. I do recall there was a lady at Railton who accused him of rolling his eyes when she was saying something about, I can't remember the issue, but Gerald evidently, did the eye rolling thing, and then we had to have the discussion about it, and and Gerald just said, "Oh well, okay, I might have done it. If I did, I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Can we move on?" And that was it. And it doesn't put me in an easy position where I've got to try and not discipline, but counsel somebody who knows far more about things than what I do. But it's just one of those issues. So yeah, Gerald's always been great to work with. That's the sum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time to go to
No right of reply.
All right. So anyone else? Yeah, Terry, just one.
With Gerald and that, we've got the mountain bike trail working pretty good. And I noticed on the news last night, they finally opened the bridge.
They have
Yes,
opened it,
yes,
yes.
Okay, well, this concludes our open session of our May council meeting. Thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Right.